Well, my name's not smoking. Did you get that? All right.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Roll it, smoking. Okay. Countdown.
Yeah, sure.
Everything's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
place?
yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to another episode of The Jersey Alchemist. I'm your host, Dr. John Gerard Galucci.
And I'm Philip D'Angelo. What's up, Al?
And Bonesy's in the corner.
Where he belongs.
Yeah.
After last podcast performance.
Yeah, you know, he
is enough.
really let loose on us. See, look at him back there with his bright eyes and his little smile, like everything's just good. You know, I don't know about this guy.
And where I come from, they call that a shit-eating grin. And I don't like it.
Yeah, right. I know.
Not good.
I wonder how his hemorrhoid is doing.
Well, I guess he saw your friend, maybe.
I hope so, because he is smiling. So you never
Did
know.
he spend the night outside in the parking lot, as promised?
I almost kicked him down the steps. He he was really pushing us. If you saw, a previous episode where he just came out swinging, he was denigrating Johnny Depp. Look, I don't have any stake in Johnny Depp at all. I'm kind of fed up with the bullshit too, but Bones came out swinging. Whatever.
It is kind of interesting, John, how we have to watch, you don't have to, a Johnny Depp trial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And there's so many more trials going on that are so important. For instance, the current administration in the White House is actually in court right now.
Is there an administration in the White House?
Yeah, if you want to call it that.
I thought it was a nursing home that moved into the White House.
Yeah, something like that. And they're actually trying to stop, they're trying to get it, they want the pandemic and the,
Sorry, is that your foot under there?
No, that's all right. The mask mandates of the pandemic on, all federal properties, planes, trains, buses, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're in court fighting that the pandemic still exists, and we still need, John Q. Public still needs to put on that mask, that face diaper, if you will. And then they're also in another courtroom, and they want, with immigration, what do they call that? That Trump enacted that they're going to drop. There's a policy that they're going to drop from the Trump organization that they're letting people come in with no mandates as far as are they vaccinated, do they show symptoms, kind of saying that the pandemic's over and anybody can just come in and you don't need a mask and you don't need a vaccine and you don't need anything. So here we have the same administration in separate courthouses and fighting different cases, but for their own thing is opposite. One says, yes, there's a pandemic. The other one says, no, there's not a pandemic. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Which suggests to me that the whole thing is one big hoax. Let me appease the people that I know and love that are physicians, they're ICU doctors, they're surgeons, they're infectious disease, they're family practice, they're internal medicine, on and on and on and on and on. Yes, I know, you've treated hundreds and thousands of people with COVID. Yours truly has had COVID twice. I understand what COVID is, and I've operated on a bunch of kids floridly in the throes of COVID. So, yeah, I get it. I understand that. But all of the rest of this bullshit has got to stop. And as far as I'm concerned, Tony Fauci needs to spend the rest of his life San Quentin, Rahway State Penitentiary, along with Bill Gates.
Wow, that's interesting. John, how about the children that you encountered that had COVID?
What about them?
How did it affect them? Did they need oxygen? Were they...
No. No, they just, by and large, they were kids that kind of appeared to be in the throes of a viral syndrome that, where was my role as a pediatric surgeon in their care? It really had nothing to do with COVID, except when we had to operate and I should say that the hospital suspended all elective surgery during the first wave and parts of the second wave of the pandemic. So if you needed a hernia repair, you weren't getting it. And but if you had appendicitis, or if you had a big horrible abscess, or if you had a bowel obstruction, you went to the OR. So that's what I was doing. You know, if I had to write home to tell mom what I did during the pandemic, I was operating on bowel obstructions and appendicitis and horrible abscesses and incarcerated hernias during the pandemic on kids who had COVID and kids who were COVID negative. So not a single one of those kids was in dire straits from COVID.
Do you feel that it's necessary for our kids to be in masks in school? I mean, does that make any
Not
kind
at
of
this
sense?
point. Not at this point, I don't. No.
No. Do you
No,
think earlier, though, they should have been?
I think first wave, things were scary enough worldwide that
Understood.
I would have kept my kids home from school, regardless of the consequences. Never mind going to school with a mask, because one of the things we learned in microbiology, hell, we learned it in dental school. Then when I went to med school, I learned it again, that, you know, viruses are not bacteria. Bacteria, by and large, are much, 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 much larger than viruses. And then you learn it early on in your surgical training. And I can't remember if it was my surgery rotation as a medical student or when I was an intern in surgery, that a surgical mask, which is a better mask than the pieces of shit you get at your local drugstore or supermarket, much better, do not stop viruses. Do not. So I think that topic's been beaten to death. And no matter how many times we beat that topic to death, people are still going to be confused about the efficacy of a face mask. And it's still, God bless them. It blows my mind. This is just a nervous thing that I'm messing around with my book over here. It blows my mind that I'll see people at a red light and they're the only ones in their car and they're driving all by themselves. They got that mask on. I see people jogging down the avenue all by themselves. Jogging, you know.
Outdoors.
Headband, outdoors, mask. And I'm thinking, gadzooks, the power of the mainstream media, the influence that fear has upon the human psyche is just staggering. It's unbelievable.
They've been well trained, those people,
Yeah,
especially
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ones in the cars. That is amazing.
right.
You know, I can't, when I do have to wear that, if I go to a hospital or something, I can't wait to rip that mask off. I don't know how people wear all day. I don't know how you doctors do it in surgery wearing the
Well, that, you know, for me, you know, for surgeons, you know, it's, let me say this to you regarding masks in surgery, having nothing to do with COVID, right? If you were to frequent the beach or a swimming pool, a public swimming pool, not a backyard pool, but a public swimming pool, and you love that pool or you love that beach, and you went there for decades and you were always in a bathing suit. It didn't matter how cold the water was. It didn't matter how rough the ocean was. It didn't matter whether there were jellyfish there or not, right? But the point is, you were used to going into the pool or into the lake or into the river or into the ocean with a bathing suit on. And then one day somebody says, hey, we're going to go swimming stark naked. You're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to be comfortable because it's just breaking a habit. And that's what a mask is to a surgeon. All surgeons have walked through those inner OR corridors without their hat on by mistake, without their bonnet or their tie cap or whatever. And even you can even slip into the OR without a cap and people will go, hey, where's your hat? Come on. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Back out, you grab the cap, stick it on, you go back in. But I've never, ever, 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 in 40 years in the industry, I've never walked into an operating room with no mask on because it's just too part of the gig. The hat you could forget, but the mask you can't forget.
You know, going back to the COVID-19, our vice president currently is isolated because she has COVID. And she, as I have heard, she has been vaccinated. She's been boosted twice, and yet she still contracted COVID. How is that possible?
How do you think it's possible?
Well, obviously the vaccine doesn't work. All right, is it true, John, that it doesn't or it won't? You won't get it as bad. Is that true?
Let me,
in your opinion,
let me issue my opinion, and this topic may get us stricken from the internet, but
Okay.
fine. When an agency, when one of those three-letter agencies like the World Health or the CDC or the FDA or the whoever, when they lie about something, it should make everyone suspicious of anything else they say forever and ever, amen, unless they really, really overtly clean themselves up and mea culpa for the lie. The whole mask thing was a lie. The whole mitigation of the curve thing was just one big hoax. It just is. So, the fact that the VAERS, VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, is completely bastardized and screwed and fudged. What does that mean, people, that it's been bastardized, screwed, and fudged? It's a reporting system that should mean everything to people who are electively being vaccinated. But the world is not electively being vaccinated. People are being coerced and forced with the threat of losing their job. You lose your job, you lose your apartment because you can't pay the rent, or you can't pay your mortgage. You can't feed your kids. Your kids can't go to school. I mean, wow, right? So I mentioned it before. I personally know people who have died of COVID, and I personally know people who have died of ding dong, ding dong, and that's what we're left with. That we can't say the word, otherwise the AI processors get us and they bounce the video, right? I know people who have died from that. I know people who have been so massively injured by ding dong, by this. For what? For what? Would you people get your shit together for Christ's sake? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Come on. It's unbelievable to me that people are still rushing out to get these stupid bullshit boosters. Your brains and your minds and your hearts have been co-opted. Oh, I ran out and I got my fourth booster. I got my fourth booster. I'm set. I'm ready for the world. The virus won't get me. Really? Really? Okay, listen. I hope to God that everything is perfect in your world. But you know something? I have friends and relatives that have stroked, that have had DVTs, deep venous thrombosis, blood clot in the leg. Some of those people have gone on to have that blood clot break off and float upstream and end up in the lungs, and that's a PE, a pulmonary embolism. And every year in the United States, somewhere around 350,000 people die of PE every goddamn year. Right. So you got your first and second dose. And that's not good enough. Then it's ding dong, the booster. Now you got your first booster and you get 3 doses. And then you go for a fourth. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You know what's the the best thing about Omicron variant of coronavirus is that it's a living, flying around the world inoculation. It's doing what it's supposed to do. You should pray that you get Omicron because it's mild. I had it. It's mild. It's like, I really don't feel so good. I'm kind of achy, got a bit of a sore throat, my sinuses feel like shit. Oh, took a test. Ooh, you're positive. You're positive. And then a week later, you're perfectly fine. And now you got even more antibodies. But you don't undergo the risk of, ding dong, another stupid shot. So Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci can go shit in their hat and pull it over their head.
That would be some trick.
Oh,
John, recently there was a video of Anthony Fauci that came out, I'm going to say 2004,
oh, I know where this is going.
where and we might have talked about it on a previous podcast, where he actually,
Talking about influenza.
he's explaining that if you have the antibodies, it's the best thing, better than any vaccine, better than any shot, anything you can take.
Of course. Here, gang. Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is. Why? Because ding dong, boing. These things only kick off your immune system, so they say, to a certain portion of the virus, maybe the spike protein. Maybe. But when you get the virus organically, right? No pun intended. You're out there and you get the virus. Oh my God, I'm positive. Right? When you get that virus, your immune system sees the entire friggin' virus. And now it's tasting it, licking it, smelling it, chewing it, eating it, so that your macrophages respond to it, and your white blood cells respond to it, and your killer cells respond to it, and your memory cells respond to it. Everybody says, oh, I've got antibodies. That's not the whole story, gang. It's not the whole story. You got memory cells, so that even if your antibodies peak and then wane, and we really don't know how long it takes for the peak and the wane to kind of, for the curve to be mitigated, right? We don't really know how long that takes, because you could have subsequent infections that kind of keep boosting the peak of your naturally produced antibodies, but that does not take into consideration the rest of your immune system, which includes the memory cells, which hold memory against those antigens. So your antibodies can look. You could have had the measles, the mumps, the rubella, or chickenpox years and years and years ago. What do you think your antibody levels are going to be? They're going to be really, really, really down, almost non-existent. And if you come across that virus again, the system kicks off, and ultimately it will employ the memory cells, which bring it all back, and now the factory starts pumping out more antibodies. Okay, if we had to rely on high levels of circulating antibodies for everything that we come in contact with, our blood would be as thick as honey and we'd be dead.
That'd be a problem. John, you can't blame people, though, with the misinformation that's been pumped out there by people changing their mind from one week to another week. I mean, it sends people into a panic.
Of course it does.
I mean,
I think this was all done on purpose by these son of a bitches to keep people off balance. And then when you're off balance, what do? You default to fear. And what is fear? Huddling, contraction. It's contracting and huddling and hiding. It's just the opposite of love. We've talked about that.
I think that's a great way to put it. Default to fear. I mean, that's where people go.
That's
I
what
mean,
they
it's
do.
human nature. That's what everybody does. I mean, I know a couple times I had like a stuffy nose, and I'm like, maybe a slight fever, and I'm like, oh no, here it comes. It's COVID. I'm getting it. Ran to the drugstore, got the home test, rapid test, nothing. That wasn't good enough. I had to go to a Medi center.
MedEmerge, yeah.
Yeah, MedEmerge.
Right.
I had to get that other test. What's it called? 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 days. The RPM or something. No, that's cars.
PCR?
RPM.
PCR?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is. And I had to wait for that. And of course, I didn't have it. I had a
Right.
stinking little
Yeah.
cold that was
Right.
gone by the time I got the results.
Right.
But in the meantime, all hell's breaking
Right.
loose. I'm isolating
Mhm.
in my bedroom. I'm like, don't come near me.
Yeah.
Can't go to work.
No, I know.
It's crazy. But I know when you had it was serious the first time you got COVID, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was
And
no joke.
I'd like to talk a bit about monoclonal antibodies. Okay?
Lex.
Yeah. The monoclonal antibodies that were around early on in the pandemic, I think there were two preparations. One was by a company named Regeneron, and I think that's what President Trump had been given when he got COVID. I think that was first wave, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the other one was from Eli Lilly, called Bamlivimab, Bamlivamab. And whenever you see a drug that ends in MAB, it means monoclonal antibody, okay? Which means that the whiz kids working for these companies produce a drug that makes an antibody that targets an endpoint. In other words, the spike protein on a virus. And I think that's what the monoclonal antibodies were designed to do. It wasn't targeting the envelope of the virus. It was the spike protein. Because if you have a viron that's kind of floating along in somebody's bloodstream and it looks like one of those old World War II mines in the ocean with the spikes sticking off of it, most of our viewers probably don't have a clue what I'm talking about, but we've all had the vision and the images of a virus shoved down our throats on television and the internet. It's a circle with all these little spikes on it. And the spikes are called the S protein. Well, if you were to throw a whole bunch of cotton balls at the spike proteins, and the cotton was to get caught up in the spike proteins, and the virus was counting on the spike proteins to hook onto your cell, and then when it does, boop, it injects your cell with something like a flash drive, because viruses are like flash drives. Right? You know what a flash drive is? It's a little thing. It's got information in it. It's got a little program in it, whatever. Maybe it's got pictures, or it's got, your resume or your CV. It's got some information in that flash drive. And you could take a garbage can full of flash drives and pour it over your laptop or your PC. And it ain't going to infect your operating system. It's not going to infect your computer until you get one of them and plug it in a USB port. And all of a sudden, the information goes whoop right in, and now you're screwed. And that's exactly what a virus does. Okay, so the monoclonal antibody was produced to target the S protein or the spike proteins of this particular virus. Well, I get COVID on Christmas Eve 2020, December 24th, 2020, out of nowhere. And everybody that knew me at work, that worked with me, that knew I was looking at and consulting on and operating on kids with COVID, they all said the same thing, just like this. It wasn't, oh my God, we're so sorry you got COVID. Hope you're going to be okay. It was, how did you get COVID? What's going on in the hearts and the minds of the people? How did you get COVID? So I came up with some stupid bullshit answer. Like, I went into my backyard, the swamps, and I picked up a dead fall log and I huffed this green fog that came out from under it. I guess that's how I got COVID. What's wrong with you people? Where did you think I got COVID from? Yeah, nobody was in the movie theaters, I went 3 places in my life with a friggin' mask on and hand sanitizer everywhere. And when I went to the supermarket, I put throwaway gloves on. I went from my house to the supermarket to work. and back and forth and back and forth. I went to the supermarket maybe like once every 2 weeks because when I went, I really stocked up. So now I'm sicker than shit. I'm counting every breath at night. It felt like 3 people with baseball bats broke into my house and their agenda was to beat me to a pulp and break my bones, but not kill me, because killing me would have been merciful. And that's what COVID was for me. It was hard to breathe. I was counting every breath, and I could barely move because of the immense pain. My fever was around 101.5. I think maybe it peaked at 102. Never really went above that, but man, I felt like shit, and I haven't felt like that in years. So I called up some friends of mine, physicians. Is there anything that you can do? Like, please help. I was begging, please help
How
me.
long did that last, John? Like, how long did you feel like that for?
We're getting there, right?
Okay.
And several of them were nasty with me. No, there's nothing to do. It's a virus. Wow. Holy moly. Like, you're taking a hardline, nasty stance with me. Aren't we the colleagues that would have coffee with each other? Aren't we the colleagues that go and get a grilled cheese? Yeah, we are. And that's how you act toward me? Thanks for nothing, friends, colleagues. I'll be damned. So, one of my colleagues called me up on, I think, the 4th day that I was sick. So, maybe it was December 28th, something like that. He hears the story, and he says, well, it was like hemming and hawing. Like he didn't, stumbling over his words, like he wanted to tell me something, but didn't know if he should. And I says, what are you going to say? You probably need to go to the emergency room. Well, I have a pulse ox, and my pulse ox says 96. And I'm hearing that, you really can't, the emergency room is going to turn you away until, in other words, go away and get really, really sick and then come back and we'll admit you and put you on a ventilator in the ICU. But for now, we're not interested if your O2 sats on room air are above 95. All right, fine. He says to me, no. He says the ER has a concoction. He goes, it's a monoclonal antibody. It's a 1-hour infusion. He goes, then they observe you for an hour. He goes, it might help. Okay. I'm thinking, monoclonal antibody. Okay, all right. Well, why was he getting mamby-pamby stumbling over his words about it? Because apparently the monoclonal antibody was intentionally held back. That's a what the moment. Are you kidding me? So my daughter, God bless her, who also had COVID with me, gets in the car, drives me to the ER, and I present myself. They come in, ask me a bunch of questions, and I didn't realize that if I had just answered one of those questions the wrong way, it would have disqualified me. Yeah,
Wow.
right. So the criteria to be given the monoclonal antibody, which for them was bamlivimab by Eli Lilly, the criteria was you had to be over 65 with 3 comorbidities. A comorbidity would be just other disease processes that you're dealing with, like diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, rheumatoid arthritis, on and on and on. The things that people get, right? Okay. But they dropped the criteria to 55 and 1 comorbidity. Well, why did they do that? And the answer was, well, because it's sitting on the shelves and it's not moving. Well, what'd you expect? It's a holdback. Nobody knows about it. The primary care physicians weren't told that it exists. And people are dropping like flies. People are getting admitted to the ICU, boom, tube down the old trachea, you're intubated, you're paralyzed, pharmacologically paralyzed, and you're on a vent, and 85% of the people that get vented don't get off alive? And you're holding this back? Are you crazy? So, my experience with bamlivimab was that halfway through the infusion, I felt like there had been the world's largest elephant lying on me. And it decided to it wasn't fun anymore to be sitting on John Gerard Gallucci, you know? So it got up and it walked away. And all of a sudden, the aches disappeared. All of a sudden, the pain. I could take a full breath, and it worked like that. And on the way home in the car, I could not believe it. I could actually see again. My vision took a big hit. I was suffering with long haul COVID after that, but in the immediacy of getting the bamlivermab, it saved my life dramatically and immediately. So, why is it that you apparently can't get a monoclonal antibody anymore? I don't know.
John, that's evil. To hold back that treatment.
Of course
How
it's
many
evil.
people died? How many people suffered? I mean, to treat it back. When I went with my cold and I went to the Medicenter, I said, now suppose it comes back positive. What are we going to do?
Right.
Oh, nothing. Just go home.
Nothing. It's
Just
a
go
virus.
home.
Screw yourself. Go home.
Good
luck, pal.
I've never seen anything that where there was no treatment. Like nobody would offer anything.
What I want to know from the healthcare profession, from the presidents of the hospitals, all the way down the ranks, through every little nook and cranny of the administration, all the way down through the different pillars of the healthcare systems, the physicians, the nurses, the top, to the bottom, to the left, to the right. What were you all thinking when you had a product that was working dramatically and people were getting sicker and sicker and sicker at home alone, and their primary care physicians were not being told that this product existed? Didn't it sound a little bit strange to you? Didn't it? Right? I remember watching a movie when I was, I think, a teenager called The Andromeda Strain. It was all about some, crazy bacteria that was killing people left and right. There was a scene where there was a fighter jet pilot, in his jet, and the rubber on his mask disintegrated, and he was dying. He was dying of the Andromeda strain, and he crashed his plane and died in a big ball of flames and smoke. What if in that movie somebody said, hey, we have a product that will get you better in a matter of moments? Do you think it's a good idea if we tell people about it? Or should we just hide it? Should we just let it be a holdback? To the general population that's watching this, would you please get it through your heads that the monoclonal antibody preparations that saved my life, that saved thousands of lives, was an intentional hold back. It was held back from people who showed up in the ER, and it was purposely not, it was not given to the primary care physicians. The primary care physicians didn't even know about it. How do I know? Because when I had friends and relatives calling me up to say, oh my God, I've got COVID, I'm so sick, and I called my primary care physician and he says, it's a virus, tough it out. There's nothing to do. That's disgusting. That's evil. That's criminal. That's criminal. So I contend that the healthcare profession has turned criminal. It's turned evil, just like the Disney Corporation. It has. No one's ever going to convince me otherwise. Look, if you have appendicitis, you go to the hospital, got to have it taken care of. You have to. God bless. You need a cardiac bypass? Yeah, we're real good at it. Go get your heart fixed. If you got this, you got that, great. But what was done during the pandemic about holding back medications so that people were told to just go home and call us back when you're really, really sick? Here's another part of the sick process, okay? If you were sick for more than 10 days, it disqualified you from getting the monoclonal antibody. So here's what happens. So grandma or Aunt Teresa or cousin Bobby calls the ER and says, I'm I'm really sick for 5 days. You know, what do I do? I got 103 fever. I can't move. I got and the ER says, or the primary care physician says, well, do you have a pulse ox? Well, go get one. Well, how am I supposed to go get one? I can barely get off my pillow. I can't get off the bed. Well, have somebody deliver one to your house. Well, guess what? Now you can't find one, and you can't find any thermometers because people are hoarding them, and they're all gone. And then they tell you, call us back in 5 days and let us know how you're doing. It's day 6, 5 days later, now you're sicker than shit, and it's the 11th day. And they say, oh, we're sorry, you're disqualified from getting the monoclonal antibody because you've been sick for over 10 days. Good luck. What kind of healthcare system is that? What happened to the Hippocratic Oath? Mass psychosis. That's what it's all about.
Wow, it truly is amazing how.
It is amazing. It's disgusting.
And you almost, now that we're gone full circle, John, you almost can't blame people for being scared to wear a mask in their car as they're driving because of situations like that. Because we all knew somebody who succumbed to COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody. It was like your cousin's sister's ex-father-in-law's brother who was a jogger and healthy. I personally, my cousin's best friend, who I knew as well, 35 years old, and he was healthy.
Yeah.
And it took him out at 35 years old.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that, of course, you know, there's so many of you out there that are so eager and willing to label me as a conspiracy theorist. Oh, he's got a shelf with a bunch of tin hats, all that crap. The system did everything it could to drive up the number of deaths, the number of intubations, and the number of positive tests. Drive it up, drive it up, drive it up. So now we can back up the fear-mongering. If everybody got a monoclonal antibody when they were sick early on, within the first 7 or 8 days, the numbers would have been radically different. And then what? And then what would happen to the push to get everybody boing, boing, right? So what's it all about, Alfie? What's it all about? Is it all about the incidence of death and the death waves of the death curve of wave 1 and wave 2 and wave 3? Is that what it was all about? Or was it about pushing the sheep into the hopper so that when they went into the hopper, they got bing, bong, they got this? What's it all about, Alfie? And let's not even talk about snake venom, because I haven't heard enough about it, but there's this notion out there that there are peptides, parts of protein molecules that are identical to snake venom that's turning up in people's bloodstreams, and it's being implicated in the blood dyscrasias that are happening all over the place to people who have had multiple this shit, blood clots, bleeding, thrombosis, on and on and on.
John, could you please explain to me and our audience how the virus transferred from a bat at a wet market to the whole world?
Do you remember? Listen, here, look. If you believe that 19 jihadists flew jets into the World Trade Centers and that they proved that Muhammad Atta was the ringleader because in the ashes and the rubble on the sidewalk in Lower Manhattan, they found his driver's license. If you believe that bullshit story, then you'll believe the story that the mainstream media came out with relatively early on in the pandemic. And what was the story? There was a Chinese woman eating soup with a bat in her soup. It wasn't like she was eating soup and, oh, drat, a bat flew around and boom, into her soup like a fly would. No. She made bat soup. Kind of reminds me of the Munsters, bat soup, anyone? Oh, I'll have seconds, right? Do you believe that bullshit story that this particular coronavirus that's been in the bat population for probably thousands of years because some woman decided she was going to eat her soup with a bat in it because apparently there was nothing else to eat, or she just digged the shit out of eating a bat in her soup? All of a sudden there's a pandemic? You believe that bullshit story? I got news for you. I walked by the office of a friend and colleague of mine, and I knew right away where this whole thing came from. It came from a lab, and it was intentionally created, and it's a bioweapon, and there were probably two factions that were responsible, the United States and China. What does it look like now? But when I said that early in 2020, oh, I was eviscerated. I was a conspiracy theorist. Don't you know it came from a pangolin? Really? Oh, well, I mean a bat. It came from a bat in that woman's soup. You're an educated physician. How stupid can you be that you think that we're in a pandemic because of some woman with a bat in her soup?
Well,
Good God.
I mean, didn't it fool Dr. Anthony Fauci, John? Wasn't he saying that's probably where it came from? I mean, an educated, our leader when it came to this.
Anthony Fauci is an evil, corrupt, little poisonous toad. That's what he is. If a poisonous snake bites Anthony Fauci and tries to swallow him, the snake will die.
I mean, because he was out there throwing that theory around like it was, gospel. So, why would he do that? I mean, why would he purposely come out and talk about the wet market every
He's one of those
time?
people I made reference to on a previous podcast episode where there are evil, nefarious people in this world who have no souls. They're monsters. They're monsters. And what about that? I can't remember his name. He was somebody high up in the World Health Organization who got on television and said, we will be taking children from homes where there are people who are COVID positive. The only thing I can say to that douchebag is, try it. Try it.
They're trying it in China and they're doing it.
Well, you know what? Right now, we still have enough of us left. There's enough spirit in us in the West left that we're not as bad as China right now. The big push, at least for what we're seeing on the internet, Australia, not to be redundant about that, but I call upon Ricardo Bossi, B-O-S-S-I or B-O-S-I, former military special forces, Australian politician, YouTube personality. For God's sakes, man, you know what? We're praying for you. Turn things around in Australia. Please, Ricardo Bossi. I've seen you on YouTube. You're spectacular. You gotta get the masses, fighting against the tyranny. How dare the authorities and the law enforcement agencies be beating the shit out of Australian citizens? How dare they? Oh, now I'm Greta Thunberg. How dare you? Yeah, you've seen me do that over and over again, and I'm going to keep doing it. You know something? The world's in a bag of shit. And you know something? This goes out to the Australian government and your law enforcement agencies. Who the hell died and left you, the kings and the queens of the universe? How dare you act tyrannically with the heel of your big communazi boot on the throats of your population? God help you. I will pray for you because you need it more than many other places. The Chinese need it more than you, but you're right up there, second place.
I have a friend whose son actually does research, and that's his job, to research, viruses, why things happen. And the second he looked at the breakdown of the virus, he knew it was man-made. The proteins,
Of course,
the way it's set
of
up,
course.
protected.
As a matter of fact, parts of the AIDS virus were used in the genetic modification of the coronavirus, so that a lot of people who have coronavirus or who have gotten the bing bong can test positive for AIDS. That doesn't mean that they have acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. It doesn't mean that they have the HIV virus. It means that they'll test positive. But look, people, you have to take a leap of faith to believe that humanity can at times act in such a depraved fashion that the masses of good-hearted people just would never believe it. Case in point, let's go all the way back to the AIDS era. Let's call it the 80s, early to mid 80s, right? When they isolated the AIDS virus, and don't think Anthony Fauci wasn't around back then. He certainly was. He was also still a snake in the woodpile, right? But here's what happened. A pharmaceutical company produced apparently 4,000 aliquots of a product that would be considered a human blood product, like let's call it fresh frozen plasma or frozen plasma or human albumin, whatever the product was. And 4,000 aliquot. An aliquot is like a certain serving, okay? It's like, and if it were a unit of blood, it's a plastic bag with red blood cells in it. That's packed red blood cells, okay? So an aliquot is the term used to connote a portion of, right? A serviceable, sellable, movable, usable portion. 4,000 aliquots of HIV-infected human blood products were known. And guess what Big Pharma refused to ditch, refused to incinerate? This is right in the middle of the AIDS crisis. They refused to destroy those 4,000 aliquots of HIV-infected, whatever it was, plasma. Guess what they did? They sold it to a French company who turned around and issued it to the French population. Did you get what I said? 4,000 aliquots of human blood product, not red blood cells. I think it was plasma, which actually looks kind of like a pale yellow, cloudy liquid. Known HIV infected. How many of you would say, hey, hook me up, doc, put the IV right here and hang that bag on the pole and run it in, because it doesn't matter that it's HIV infected. Let's just run that into my body. 4,000 doses, 4,000 aliquots sold to some French company, whoever. And what did they do with it? They issued it to the population. Would you please get your head around that? These are the people that are pulling your strings, the same people.
Well, John, we have enough bad guys out there. People like that, Big Pharma, Fauci. Where, I've said this before in prior podcasts, where are the heroes?
I'm going to tell you
where are the heroes in the
Yeah.
medical profession, in politics, and in media? Where are they?
Okay. Where was the hero in the movie Braveheart? Who was the hero? What was his name? Remember his name? William Wallace. Okay, played by Mel Gibson. What happened to the hero? What happened to the hero in the end? Right? Yeah.
Beheaded.
Right. Well, he was dismembered. That's what he was. They cut his balls off first, and then I think they beheaded him, right? And that's what happens in this third dimension, in this world, to the heroes. What happened to Jesus Christ? Because make no mistake about it, William Wallace was being portrayed by Mel Gibson as a Christ-like figure. He stood up to the filthy, evil Brits of the day. Brits of the day. I didn't say the present day Brits. I love the Brits. So the heroes are here and there and everywhere. And by the clock on our counter here, it's time to turn this around. We're going to do a little alchemy here because we brought up some really ugly topics. And for you people out there that don't believe this, you think that I'm just blowing smoke. You think, oh, he's full of shit. He doesn't, he can't possibly believe the crap that he's talking. It's all true, folks. It's all true. So, where are the heroes? Guess what? Look no further than the mirror. The next time you pass a mirror in your house, look in the mirror because you're the hero. It's you. It's your spouse. It's your kids. It's your siblings. It's your parents. It's your friends. It's your relatives. It's your neighbors. You have to alchemize the darkness on this planet. Why? And I'll say it over and over and over again, no matter how redundant it sounds. And I did say before that humanity in this third dimension is by its very fabric, a construct of redundancy. Things happen over and over and over. So I make no apology at all for being redundant when it comes to exposing the darkness and then offering the alchemy. And the alchemy is to use your God center, to use your heart, to use your brain, but mostly your heart. Use the love. Use God's river of love and light that I write about in my book, My Life with God. There's a spectacular segment in a chapter toward the end of the book. The chapter's name is Insomnia, God's Workshop. And there is a river of love and light, and it does come from the Creator. And right now we are in the throes of an evil movement to enslave the entire planet. It's not just Australia or Canada or Africa or the United States or Europe. It's everywhere. And that's why your little mom and pop shops were all bought out and co-opted and taken over by globalist corporations. That's how they're doing this. This is their big push. It's called the New World Order. Listen, people, pray, meditate, use the energy of love that each one of us has by virtue of our God Center in that Merkaba that I've explained to you over and over and over again. And you know something? I'm going to issue the homework assignment again. Class, your assignment is to look up the word Merkaba, M-E-R-K-A-B-A-H, Merkaba. Some people spell it without the H. Some people spell it with the H. Look it up. It's the chariot of fire, people. And if it seems like I'm on fire, I am. I'm at my best right now. You may not like it. You may think I'm a ranting maniac, but you know something? People, Phil says, where are the heroes in this present darkness that surrounds us? It's you. It's you and your God Center. It's Phil and his God Center. It's me and my God Center. Spread the word, people. There is a river of love and light that's flowing everywhere, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And never be afraid of those that would point you out and say, he's one of them. Oh, no. No, no, no. Never be afraid of them. God bless you, brothers and sisters. Spend 5 minutes tonight while you're lying in bed. 5 minutes. That's all it takes. And just see yourself as a big, big radio antenna. And close your eyes and picture this massive column of white energy coming out of your chest and out of your head into the universe, and know that on the other end, somewhere way out there, it's getting picked up. Your energy, your love is getting picked up. And it makes a difference in the universe. It makes a difference in the galaxy. And there is a galaxy. And you know something? It's making a difference in the energy of the planet. This is how you become your own alchemist. You will change lead to gold. You'll change fear to love. And you'll change dark to light. God bless you, people. See you next time on The Jersey Alchemist.
Wow. John, fantastic job. If you like what we're doing, people, press the like button down below, press subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Okay, guys.